3, 2, 1.
Never has there been a better time to be alive in human history. If you're not feeling it, you must discover why. Join Matthew Bolton in developing and applying a framework of objective optimism toward a flourishing life of meaning, health, and happiness. Here's your host, Matthew Bolton.
Hi everybody, welcome to Mr. Brightside. I'm Matthew Bolton. Our bi-weekly schedule presses on, and it seems there are still no casualties. If you are looking for something to tide you through the off week, I again refer you to the backlog of episodes where you can find titles and interviews you haven't heard or might do well to hear again. The episodes do not expire as current events do, and I dare say many are worth a re-listen. In any case, I'm sure today's show will be a multiple re-listen for me. It's an interview with Lewis Page, a former soccer coach of mine who, as the show's title indicates, lives with depression, which I learned through a video he shared 5 years ago and then only recently shared a follow-up to, and which prompted me to invite him on. In our interview, Lewis describes depression as a silent thief who steals your joy, energy, and ambition, but not all at once. And in dealing with it, he refers to and outlines in great clarity what he calls a mental health process. And he constantly refers to practice, which really speaks to me and what I call not only the mindset, but method of optimism. Practice living your life, he says. Practice being the way you want to be. This is among the many drops of inspiring and practical gold Lewis gives us today through his sincerity, passion, and wisdom gained through bravely honest self-reflection and experience. And these illustrations and advice are not just for depressed people. On top, what really impressed me and why I found this interview to be especially valuable and relevant to people is that whether we consider ourselves depressed or not, as Lewis points out, none of us are operating in perfect mental health. And what I hear in Lewis's experience rings true for even me, and his advice repeatedly was wholly applicable to my life and what I understand are most people's everyday struggles to be happier. And on top of this, whether you think you're somewhere in the range of what might be deemed depressed or not, we all need to be better educated for those around us who may be struggling and for whom we might make a difference. And Lewis has just the personal experience and advice on how important friends and family have to be for those they care about. In all, Lewis was superb in his ability to learn and apply on the way to helping himself live with depression. And I really can't say enough about how impressed I was with his willingness to take all questions on seriously and thoughtfully, and his ability to articulate clarifying and empowering answers. Okay, shut up then, Bolton, and let me have it. Will do. All right, hi everybody. Welcome now to our interview. I'm joined by Lewis Page. Lewis, it's great to see you here. Thanks for coming on.
Happy to be here, Matt. It's great to see you again.
All right, great. So now perhaps more bio details will emerge as we go, but allow me first to say for many regular listeners who don't know Lewis, that for my part, I know Lewis personally through soccer. As a boy, I saw Lewis as an elite striker in the senior Nova Scotia Men's League. He's always in the Golden Boot race, something I aspired to be. Of course, he was later selected as a member of Nova Scotia's 1991 pro CSL team, the Nova Scotia Clippers, for whom my youth team had the great fortune to be ball boys. And he was one of the great coaches us young Nova Scotians were blessed to be exposed to in various provincial camps and programs, as well as with my club team at times. We share a common alma mater as St. Mary's Huskies soccer alumni, although during my time, he was by then an opposing coach of the University of Prince Edward Island Panthers, a position he still holds today. And I see a successful coach, Lewis, as I was reading up on you recently. Again, we might get into some more details on that in a bit, but take it for the moment, listeners, that he's had a spectacular career so far. So from my view, he was a star player, a respected coach. And then as I was able to gather from afar over the years, he's only achieved more success and respect in his career, has a beautiful family, and in all is just a very popular guy. So it shocked me, as I'm sure it did many others around him, to see his Facebook post in January 2016 share a Bell Let's Talk Day video in which he declares that he lives with depression. It's a moving video and very bravely and well spoken, I might say, Lewis, in which we're going to get into today. And then to jump ahead in the story, and what we're also going to get into today, is that just very recently, Lewis posted another Bell Let's Talk Day video in which he reports his progress in living with depression and how well he seems to be doing, including the reasons why. I was very impressed with the video, and I said so in a reply to it on Facebook. But it wasn't long after that it occurred to me to just invite him on the show and talk about it, because there was so much that was indicated, but that I would love to know more about, and that I think many others could do well to know more about. So I reached out, and I'm very delighted that he's agreed to come on. So thanks again, Lewis, for making the time for me today.
Yeah, it's great to be here, and I look forward to the conversation. I mean, anytime you get a chance to kind of share your journey or share your experience, it's always good.
All right, excellent. So before we dive into the first video, let's get a bit into who you are again for those who don't know you. I think this is important just to set this up because you're a very unlikely candidate from an outside perspective for depression, right? Especially when you factor in the ignorance of most of us on the subject. You mentioned in your first video that you were a successful coach, you had a loving family, friends, great health, etc. So perhaps a quick breakdown of some of this stuff will give us a picture of your apparent thriving life so that we might see that depression is not necessarily the result of some failure in any aspect of one's personal life. So what are some of the highlights of your coaching career? And please don't be modest on us.
Other than coaching you and your brother when you were like 12 and 13 years old.
It's been a lot since then.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been very fortunate, in both my playing and my coaching career that I've been able to do well locally, as one of the top senior players and playing professionally for a season, in my own province in Halifax. That was great. Played for Canada's under 20s for a little while, so got to represent the country, and then I followed kind of a similar journey as a coach. I came to Prince Edward Island in 1995 for an 8-month contract, and I'm still here, so I must be doing something right. And in that time, I got involved right away with the university when I was here, and it's been a great journey there. We've been successful. We've won a few AUS championships. In 2014, we finished third in the country. And in that time too, I also got to spend 11 years with the national team program, with various different teams and on the men's and the women's side. So, it's been a wonderful experience, and I've been happy to have it, when you talk about the depression side of it, that was kind of one of the things that really had me in denial for a long time, because you're thinking that how can there be anything wrong with me when everything in life is so good?
Yeah.
So I used to think that there was kind of a chart, you had to sort of have to have suffered at a certain level to have depression or to think that you're suffering from some sort of mental illness. Mm-hmm. And, you don't realize that it doesn't really matter what brings you to the point, that your own life experience has brought you to the point, and your experience of it is just as challenging as someone who's maybe suffered a more traumatic event or something more drastic than you have.
Mm-hmm. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for today. Cause I really, I'm claiming ignorance when I say that I'm talking about myself. I don't really know what we're necessarily talking about. And this is why these videos like yours, I guess why you feel you should be stepping out and explaining it, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, depression is an interesting thing because I call it kind of it's like a silent thief, and it comes and it steals away your joy. It steals away your energy. It steals away your ambition, but it doesn't take it all at once, so it doesn't kind of hit you with one big wallop. It beats you with a whole bunch of little tiny punches, until you sort of realize wake up one day and realize that you're not supposed to feel this heavy or this apathetic or this unmotivated, and it's all the little things that have brought you to that point.
Okay. So, all right then. So we've established that your career is great, and you said didn't really get it. Thought it was supposed to be some kind of spectrum. This is all the same: family, friends, health. It was all, we've all got a little bit of dysfunction in our relationships, but you had certainly nothing, anything that you would say this outwardly caused me to be depressed. Any kind of reason to be depressed?
No, I mean, I think I had it, probably most of my life where I would have good points and bad points as my partner now, Maura, says, sometimes you're at the top of the wave and sometimes you're at the bottom of the wave, and you would sort of put it down to being tired or being moody or whatever. But, when I look back now, I can see, certain patterns where those moments would last longer and be harder and be heavier. And I can see sort of where, it impacted my life, where, maybe I wasn't as successful in school as I wanted to do, or in relationships. And I can see where that had an impact, and the hard thing was sort of coming to the realization that there was something more going on than just, not having the energy or being tired or not feeling fit enough or not eating right. Like, you know, and probably the event, I mean, there'd be little events over your life that are kind of hitting you on the head, trying to wake you up. You know, maybe you fail a course at school, or you lose a girlfriend, and you're not really paying attention to them. They're trying to tell you something and you're not listening, you know, and the big one was, you know, when my first wife and I got divorced, you know, and that was kind of the catalyst to, like, you know, she had always said that you may have, you know, you should seek some help, you should do something. And I always brushed it off. And, you know, that was kind of the catalyst to say, well, whoa, you know, I got to start taking care of myself. I got to figure something out here.
All right. Well, this is a great context set for this. I thought that to start us really off, I thought we might just go ahead and play the 2016 video in full, and then we'll unpack and examine some of the key issues that I know I'm curious about and listeners will want some elaboration on. What do you think of that?
Perfect. Let's do it.
My name is Lewis Page, and I live with depression. If you have mental health issues, how can you help yourself? For me, it kind of took on 3 stages. The first stage was an awareness. I knew that there was something more going on than just being sad about failing an exam or losing a game or being a little bit down because it was raining outside. It was something deeper, something darker, something that would paralyze my mind and my spirit. The second stage for me was acceptance that there was something going on. And that was really hard for me, because even though I knew there was something wrong, I was still in denial all the time. How could there be something wrong with me? I was a successful coach, I had a loving family, great health, lots of friends. But then I started to think about it like my body. If my arm was broken, well, I wouldn't say to myself, 95% of me is okay. I don't need to get my arm fixed. I would go to the doctor, they would fix my arm, and I would heal so that the rest of my body would be 100%. Mental health issues are no different. 95% of my life was great, but 5% of it was broken and needed to heal. The third part for me, the third stage, was action. I had to do something. I had to help myself. The first thing I did was I stepped out of the silence and I talked to friends. I talked to 2 very good friends, and they listened. The next thing I did was I got professional help, and that was really hard for me as well, because I had to accept that that wasn't a weakness, but a strength. To reach out, to get help, it takes courage to face your own demons, and why wouldn't you get a professional to help you do that? If my body was broken, I would go to a doctor, professionally trained to help me heal. So if my mind was injured, my spirit was broken, why wouldn't I go to a professional therapist who can help heal those things? If you have friends or you know people who are having mental health issues, how can you help them? Well, the first thing you can do is listen, and listen without judgment. The next thing you can do is talk to them honestly and with compassion. My friends had some difficult conversations with me, but they did it with love and respect, and that made it easier. The third thing you can do is help them to get help. You wouldn't hesitate to carry an injured player, an injured teammate off the field to help them go see a physiotherapist. So you shouldn't hesitate to take a friend by the hand to a mental health clinic to see a professional therapist. That's my story.
So that caught a lot of people who know you off guard. Before we break down what was in it, can you first describe the reaction to it? And what had been your reservations, if any, in publishing such a statement, and were they proved to be founded? And did anything surprise you in the reaction to it, the response at all?
To be honest, the reaction was overwhelming, and was not really anything I was ready for. You know, the Bell Let's Talk on the Facebook page, I think it had 60-some thousand views when it was first posted. And I woke up the morning it was posted, I woke up and my phone was blowing up, you know, and people I had never met were messaging me and talking about the impact of the message. You know, teachers at schools in places like Alberta and British Columbia were talking about how they're going to use it in their schools. And there were so many people reaching out, and it got to the point where I had to sort of shut down my social media for a little while because the impact on me was challenging. I didn't have any experience in that. The support from all the people, it was nothing but positive. There's always a fear when you put yourself out there that you're being vulnerable and you're opening yourself up, especially when you're in a position of not power but authority or a leadership role. That you worry about how that might impact that role. But I always think about my players and my kids and my family, and thought it was important that the message be out there and that people start to talking about it. And there's a healing process for you as well when you kind of start talking publicly about it. You explore it more, you think about it more, and it's out there. So it was an amazing experience.
Wow, I understand all of that. I thank you for that response. I got it. You stated in there that depression has 3 stages: awareness, acceptance, and action. And we'll start off with awareness. You said there was something more going on than just feeling sad about failing an exam or losing a game. It was deeper, darker. It paralyzed your mind and your spirit. What did this other dimension that you recognize look and feel like, if you could describe it a little more concretely? You've already done a bit of that with the feeling tired.
Yeah, but it's like Winston Churchill called it the black dog, right? Like it's like a fog that kind of drifts in on you, and starts to envelop you, and then you're kind of lost in that fog, and you just feel weighted, and it's kind of like having the flu. You don't want to move, you don't want to do anything. And the terrible thing is it's like what needs to be done, and you just can't get up and do it. And that's the real difference. If it was something other than depression, where it was it was the flu, or it was something, you take your medicine, you're going to get better, and in a couple of days it's going to be okay. But with the depression, you really don't know what to do. It's just that deep sadness, and mainly rooted in guilt and self-loathing, in terms of living too much in the past, and reliving your past mistakes and feeling the weight of those mistakes and feeling like you just can't move forward and come to peace with them. Okay. At least for me, and I think for everybody, it's a personal experience as well.
I think so. But I wonder too that maybe now that you've explored it more, you might also have learned more from other people's experience as well. I'm sure you've learned something about that, as not just your own personal experience, talking to professionals and others. Yeah,
for sure. And it's most people describe that sort of heaviness, and that darkness, and the lack of an ability to find solutions. You think that there is no solution and there's no way forward, and that this is what you've got, and it can become, until you sort of see the lights or come out of the silence and the darkness, you don't even realize you're in it until that weight is lifted. It's like trying to play a game carrying an extra 30 pounds, and then all of a sudden they take those 30 pounds off and like you're flying, and you didn't realize how much that was your normal, and that your normal wasn't maybe normal.
Okay. Well, so it seems though at some level you did realize it. Did you realize you were carrying some weight? And you did say, like, now it's something rooted in some past guilt, but you mentioned failing an exam as an example, and you're a little far off from being a student in 2016, right? So when were you first aware of this kind of darkness? Say you had it, kind of thought you might have always had it, but do you know when you first really recognized it?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think in high school and certainly my first few years of university, when I look back at, episodes where I did things like, maybe didn't study for an exam, or didn't get a paper done, or, should have been out training and maybe didn't go, and I look back at how I was acting physically and emotionally at those times. and realize now that in those times I was in a deep depression.
Okay.
You know, but just at the time I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it was. I was just thinking, well, why don't you get something done? I mean, get off your arse, get going.
Yes.
You know, and you don't realize that there's a physical and an emotional component to it, and no tools to solve it.
Okay. Wow. The second stage you mentioned was acceptance. And you made an analogy to a broken arm. 95% of me is okay. That you had to fix something. So we're getting a lot closer here now. What are you calling depression? It sounds almost like it's something that's inflicted, like an injury or something like upon you, more than it is a description of your emotional state. Like, so what is it? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's a state of mind, you know, and a physical or an affliction on your spirit is the way I would describe it.
Yep.
You know, like it kind of eats away your life force and your energy, right, and your vitality, and I think it comes from a number of different sources. You know, you part of it is chemical. It can be part of, you know, the way your mind is wired, and, you know, you're maybe not producing enough serotonin. You're not producing the right chemicals. It can be from your past experiences, you know, relationships with your family, your friends, you know, something you've been through that you haven't come to peace with. You know, one of the challenges I had in acceptance was, okay, I know what's wrong with me. I've you know, there's something going on, but it's not really that bad, because I was looking for the single event. Right? That, like, okay, this happened, bam, that's why, you know. So you break your arm, you know, you got in a car accident, you break your arm, you know why it happened. You understand it. Here's what I've got to do. You know, and I think with depression, it comes, and possibly with many mental illnesses, it comes from various different sources. You know, so part of it was relationships I had. You know, part of it was my experiences as a child. You know, part of it was a chemical imbalance, you know, that you know, I wasn't producing the right amount of chemicals in my brain, you know, so that you're looking for that one moment and it's not necessarily there, which makes it harder to accept, because you're like, well, why did this happen? How did this happen? And why can't I just do A, B, and C and it's fixed?
Right. Wow. Okay. I'm getting a lot closer. And that, what I'm trying to look at here too is I occurred to me that, is this maybe something that's, again, hormonal, like a chemical imbalance, is something that's kind of just happened to you as an injury does or something like that, rather than things that you've caused by the way you've thought about things or experiences and how you approach them and stuff. All of that stuff I'm trying to sort out. I think it's maybe a little bit different for everybody's own experience of it. You know, but for me, it was certainly a combination, you know, so, you know, the medication has helped, because there was, you know, chemical imbalance there. I wasn't producing enough serotonin and those kind of endomorphins and things in my brain, right? And then, but there was other issues as well that had to be dealt with, you know, and that's part of the other part of healing. So it's a bit of both. It's a physical part, and it's a physical and an emotional and a spiritual affliction. Yeah, right. And I was wondering on how much we can affect that physical part of it through the way we think, or obviously through medication, but through other things. You know, because I'm getting just more aware of hormones these days, is why I'm asking, because especially, you know, in the way they affect things with which we may not commonly associate or consider them. So I have a bit of experiences in learning more and understanding a lot more about obesity, body fat, and fitness, and that in this regard. And obesity, for instance, I understand now as not being overweight. Rather, obesity is a hormonal imbalance, right? So in this way, Dr. Fung in the obesity code, for example, he puts that you're not obese because you're overweight, you become overweight because you're obese. So what this means to me is that obesity is not the description of your body weight or your fat levels, but it's more of a condition that we have to remedy as not to become overweight with all the complications. And I wonder now, after seeing your video, I thought to me, is that maybe what this is like? Is it maybe not somewhat the same way, that it's not so much a description, but it's more like, this is why, this is maybe part of why people might not accept so much of it as their fault, right? It's something that's kind of just, it's there and I've got to deal with it now. Now what I'm curious about is it medication, and can we affect that through our own actions and things? So I know you hit a lot of that in the second video, and we will, but
yeah. And I think, you know, everybody kind of finds their own solutions as well, right? Mm-hmm. So what might work for me might not work for you, right? So some people are better without medication. They find another way to do that. They find their connection with nature, or you know, a religion, or a particular, you know, form of expression. You know, maybe they start painting, and you know, so everybody kind of finds their own way. And you know, even with the medication, you know, I went through 2 or 3 different types of medication to kind of find the right balance, you know. And I agree that it's something that I think, you know, we can help prevent, like any other kind of illness or disease, or, you know, and with the younger generation, the more we can educate them on mindfulness and healthy living and having open discussions about how they feel, you know, the more we can limit the amount that this happens, I think.
Okay, great. The third stage you said was action, and you said that you had to do something. You had to help yourself. So you stepped out of the silence. You had some very good friends. You said they listened. How important is it for someone to listen?
I think it's huge. It's probably the number one thing, because the first thing that holds you back, you know, from discussing a mental illness is your fear of judgment. You know, in your own head, you're thinking, well, if I tell somebody about this, what are they going to think? Are they going to think I'm crazy? Are they going to think that I'm damaged? You know, are they going to tell me, well, there's nothing wrong with you? Just, you know, I come from a British family where, well, my parents would just say, go stiff upper lip, carry on, son. You know, like, yeah. You have all these stories going on in your head, and all these conversations going on that haven't even happened yet. You know, and the other thing is you're at a point when you're at your lowest that you don't know what to do. You're kind of lost. And so to have friends who listen without passing judgment and are strong enough to say, you know, this is what you have to do, you know, that care enough to say it in a way that is not damaging to you. It's not confrontational, and is helpful, you know. So they made sure that, you know, I found a therapist and told me I needed to go see a doctor, you know, a medical doctor, and find out if I need medication. Like they pointed me in the right direction and listened to how I was suffering, and were compassionate.
That's what you meant when you said that honesty and compassion, and you said that your friends had some difficult conversations with you. Was that the idea that they had to kind of push you and say, like, kind of say something uncomfortable about you that you might not want to hear? Is that it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know, things like, well, you know, I always thought there was something going on with you. You know, those times you wouldn't get off the couch. You say, well, you're my best friend. You thought that about me? You know, or like, you know, you gotta go and get help. I'm going to make the call. I'm going to call the guy, and you're going to go see him. It's like, well, no, I don't need that. I'm not that bad. I'm okay. You know, and I just need let's just talk through this. And it's like, no, we're not talking through this. You're not okay. You haven't been okay for a long time. You know, those kind of conversations, you know, instead of just agreeing with me all the time. You know, they could have said, they could have just said, hey, you know what? Yeah, you're going through a tough time. You know, you'll come through it, you know. But they didn't. They were tough love, you know, in a good way. Yes. Got it. Because I'm curious about that when you said that they, you know, help you say to people, how can others help others? Help them to get help, take them by the hand to a place if you have to. And it seemed to me, throughout it that it seemed like you were pretty proactive in helping yourself initiate a lot of those difficult processes. But it sounds like, did you mean then that friends sometimes have to say, you're going with me? Or is it more that you just needed the help to I kind of want to go, but can you?
Well, I think if you've made, once you've kind of made that first call to a friend, or a family member or a trusted coach, I think once you've kind of made that first call, you're asking for help. You just don't realize how much help you need.
Okay.
And sometimes it takes that person to take you by the hand and say, no, this is like, I don't have the capability. I mean, I've had players come to me, and want to discuss things, and I'm not trained to give them what they need. They need more than I can give them.
Yep.
Right. So like, just like it goes back to the injured player analogy, right? If their ankle's wrecked, well, they can come to me, but I can't fix it. Right. So, I've had to literally take players by the hand and walk them to the counselors at the university and say, this is where you need to be. They have the education, the experience, the capacity to help you. Right. I'm there to support you. I'm there to help you. I'm there to listen to you, but they have the training to help you heal.
Right. So the message then to friends is that if you get that first call, that first reach out, you might have to go ahead and push more after that. You might have to go ahead and say, not just say, oh, you're all right. Oh, no, I'm pretty good. And you have to kind of look deeper and say, maybe you got to drive it from there a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to have honest conversations for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think, Lewis, this is an excellent start. And I think we'll fill in more of this stuff as we take on the second part. So I'd now like to play the second video you shared only last week at the time of this recording. It'll be, that was January 29th. It was an update of your story, and you reported more sunny days than cloudy days. So here it is.
Hello, everyone. It's Bell Let's Talk Day, and in the spirit of connect, care, and share, I thought that I would connect with you all, care enough to share an update of my story. As some of you may know, in January 2016 on Bell Let's Talk Day, I spoke quite candidly about my journey with depression. I am happy to tell you today that there are far more sunny days than cloudy days in my life. And when the cloudy days come and the rain falls, I have a much better umbrella. What's that umbrella made up of? First of all, it's made up of my relationships. My family challenge and support me with their love every day. And I am blessed to have Maura, Emerson, Kira, and Bradley along for the journey. It's made up of my relationships with my friends, far and near, who even in these difficult COVID times have made the effort to connect and share and care. It's made up of new tools that help keep me balanced and centered. They include therapy, medicine, meditation, journaling, exercise. All of those things combined give me the tools I need to help fix my problems. It's made up of a new perspective. I see the same world through new eyes. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. And I choose to focus on trying to live a life of inner wisdom and outer action. The inner wisdom is made up of how I want to try to be in the world, to be brave, to be present, to be loving. The outer action is made up of what I want to try and reflect in whatever I'm putting out in the world. I want to inspire, instruct, and impact those around me. I would encourage you all to think of your life as a great experiment, and you are the subject. Make observations, be curious, and try to apply new solutions to the problems that you face. You may not always succeed, but you will always learn and grow. So on this Bell Let's Talk Day, I encourage you again to connect, care, and share, because every action matters.
Well, when I heard that last week, it moved me much like the first one, but in a different way. And I know it's helped a lot of people already. So thank you again for stepping up with such a video. You refer in that straight away in that video to connect, care, and share. Is that a slogan of the Let's Talk Day campaign?
Well, yeah. I mean, the slogan at the time, it was every action matters.
Yes.
you know, and then the connect, care, and share piece kind of came as I was walking around the campus and seeing, you know, all the speech bubbles that people were putting up. Those were kind of words that kept coming out to me. So I put a tweet out just saying that, you know, and especially with all the COVID and everybody get kind of isolated, you know, that idea of being able to connect and be with people, I thought was important, you know, and then the idea of sharing, I thought was important. Like share, it's one thing to listen to people, but I think it's important to share your own story. You know, I had a guy I coached with named Brian Rosenfeld who with the national team program, and he used to say, "Don't be stingy, share the gold." You know, in other words, talk to your teammates. You know, your story may impact one of them. You know, and so after I put the tweet out, the video was kind of a spur of the moment decision because I thought, well, I can't put out something on social media that says connect, care, and share, and then not share myself.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be just a good time to, you know, because of the Bell Let's Talk connection, to sort of give people an update of where I am on the journey now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad I asked. It sounds so. You said in the spirit of connect, care, and share. That was your slogan. You kind of put together yourself, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Great. Now, in the video, you said you have a much better umbrella, and then you describe what it's made up of. I'd like to break some of that down if we can. The first thing it was relationships. And you said you have a family that challenges and supports you with love every day. So I can understand the support part, but what about the challenge? Is it important for people to challenge whom they love, and in what way?
Well, I think, you know, every relationship we have to accept has challenges, you know, and those challenges, you have a choice with those challenges that you can see them as a negative or a positive, you know, in terms of your own growth, you know, and one of the great things my partner Maura does is she pushes me to not settle for you know, the status quo, you know, and she encourages me to keep pushing myself and keep, you know, setting a higher standard for myself and not accepting that I couldn't do more or be more, and that I deserve to be more. I deserve to be heard. You know, I have value, you know, and at times I can be humble to a fault, you know, and she challenges me to express myself more is probably the best way I could put it, you know, that my words have meaning, my actions matter, you know, and from a loving space, you know, you know, and I think with relationships with my children and my players, you know, that there's always challenges about how to deal with the conflict and how do we want to be as a team, as a family, you know, as a father and son, a father and daughter, you know, so, but there's always the love and the support, right? So no matter what the challenges are, there's always the love. The love is always there.
All right. Yeah. Any relationship, you need to be challenged to become better, or, you know, it has to be some growth in your life, and you have to grow together, or it's just, well, it won't last any
Exactly,
kind of relationship.
Yeah. And people sometimes run away from those challenges instead of embracing them.
Yes. Very good. The next thing was new tools. You said you have new tools that help keep me balanced and centered. And they include therapy, medicine, meditation, journaling, exercise. You said they combine to give me the tools I need to fix my problems. Can you elaborate on any or all of those? Maybe therapy, for instance, and even what kind of meditation have you tried? Maybe won't go too far. Stop right there for a minute. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we start at the beginning. You know, like talk therapy was a great resource for me, you know, especially in terms of sort of digging into my past a little bit, you know, and trying to understand sort of, you know, one of the imbalances I really had was my mental and my emotional states were quite far apart. I wanted to live all in my head and not really have my emotions out and in the forefront. And part of that comes from, you know, being an athlete where we're encouraged all the time to control our emotions. And I always took that as suppress my emotions, right? So push them away, don't feel them, but you don't really push them away. They're still down in there digging away at you. You just don't realize it, And so through that kind of therapy, it made me start to realize that my emotions are okay. It's okay to show my emotions, to have my emotions, to feel my emotions. It's just what I do with those emotions that matters, So if I'm angry, it doesn't mean I can go thump some guy in the head, but it's okay to be angry. Yes. I would just push that emotion away altogether and think, well, you can't be angry. It serves no purpose.
Right.
But yes, you can. It just doesn't give you an excuse for doing something silly, and it lets you dig more. What I said when someone asked me one time about therapists, they said, well, what do you get from a therapist that you couldn't get from talking to your friends? And because of their training, they know the right questions to ask you to help you figure out the answers you need to find from inside yourself, whereas your friends aren't really experienced enough to kind of pull those questions out of you. So they're very good at helping you discover things about yourself.
Right.
And,
totally.
Yeah. And the medication piece, I was probably the piece that I was the most opposed to, because I was thinking, well, I don't need medicine. I can solve this myself. And am I going to have to take this the rest of my life? And then, I started thinking, my son is a type 1 diabetic. He takes insulin, and we don't think that about his insulin, so that was what kind of changed that a little bit. Say, well, there's nothing wrong with maybe that, like his body doesn't produce insulin. Well, maybe my body's not producing the right amount of chemicals for me to be balanced emotionally the right way, and there is a bit of trial and error, and sort of, you try one thing and it maybe makes you feel too much one way, maybe too groggy, or it doesn't have any effect, or, and then I've come to one that works quite well for me, and the biggest one for me was sleep. I would wake up at 3:00 in the morning all the time and then not be able to sleep. And the medication really, I sleep through the night now, which is a huge thing for me.
Oh my, yeah, I can imagine. I understand sleep now to be a really important thing. And again, in the physical health and mental health and all that stuff, sleep is huge. And I'm only just starting to learn about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the meditation has been good for me, and I've gone, and again, it's something that, that I've tried different types of things. They're just the simple sitting in quiet with your breath to be present. And the first time I did that, it was an emotional experience, because we don't often just, once you sit in quiet, there's only you, and a lot of things come up when you shut down everything for 15, 20 minutes and sit in silence. You can't really hide from yourself at that point. You can't distract yourself, and lately I've been getting into a lot of breath work, along with my meditation, which I find really, really rewarding, really good.
Very good. I do know a bit about that. I'm just starting into some meditation these days, just trying out different things and experiencing the things you're talking about.
Yeah. And I love they always tell you that meditation is a practice.
Yes.
So it's when you first start it, you think it's got to be perfect, but it's not. It's something you practice. Right?
Yep, big time. Okay. And yeah, so we said that. Oh, journaling. That was another one. Journaling sounds like a chore to a lot of people. And I wonder, what does journaling look like to you, and how does it help you?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like, people think about, well, I've got to sit down for half an hour and write things down. For me, it's a pretty quick process. I try to, maybe a page or two, at the most. And it used to be just sort of recapping the day. I might, write in the evening, and I started out with simple things, like what was challenging today, what was good today, what am I grateful for today, and just few little small points. And now I've tried to start, just a couple things in the morning, just jotting down a few things about what's my intention for today, what do I want to achieve, and then you kind of reviewing that at the end of the day. So it doesn't have to always be a big stream of consciousness thing, but it is a place where you can, reflect on your day.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely get the setting the intention for the day when I find kind of my things in front of me day, whether it's day or weekend. If it's all lined up, it's a lot more liberating to kind of just go through and knock it down, and you can kind of operate between that freely, I find. But as far as
a lot less stressful.
A lot less stressful, right? And now, but as far as the other part, writing down your challenges and what I'm grateful for, do you like go back and read those again, like later on, and kind of see how it changes over time, or how does that part help?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Get it out of you. Is that the thing?
Yeah. Get it out of you. And I think some of the positive, like the idea of like every day kind of thinking about what you're grateful for is a huge mental health practice. In terms of whatever's going on in a day, you can always find some good, right?
Yes, I know it. Okay. The other thing, how does exercise play in that too? Then it might seem obvious, but maybe give us how it helps you and what kind of exercise.
I mean, one of the biggest things that I think I've realized is that it's, when I start feeling myself going down, to near the bottom of that wave, exercise is something that can pull you back up. Okay. So sometimes, just even though you don't want to, just getting out for a run or getting 20 minutes exercise, or, it was always easy when we played, right? Think how much better you felt after a game or a practice, and that's all it really was,
Okay.
But without the commitment to have to go play for a team or go to a practice, you have to make the effort to do it yourself. But certainly that little bit of energy, even if it's 15 minutes of yoga to get you moving in the morning, it makes a huge difference. And I can tell when I haven't done it for a few days, I can feel myself starting to kind of, the guilt and the anxiety and the weight starts to come, so being out there and getting myself moving is a big part of that umbrella that keeps the bad days away.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very good. Okay, then the other component to that umbrella was a new perspective. And you said, I see the same world through new eyes. So how did you build that perspective? You just go, I'm going to just look at it differently. I mean,
yeah, I think it comes with the more you kind of start to explore yourself, and you read more, you listen more, you have more conversations, you start to be more self-reflective. I started to realize how much my view of the world was impacting my mental state, my emotional state, and that the more I could open my eyes to the good that was around me, the more that I could open my eyes to what I enjoyed in the world, what brought me joy, the better I felt, and everything kind of comes back to the game for me, the game of soccer and the game I love. And my mindset when it came to the game was so different than my mindset when it came to my life. Like, if I'm playing a game, well, I always believe we can win. I always believe I can make an impact on the game. I always believe that that my effort matters, but to transfer that to real life was the challenge, and I started to realize, well, why don't I start looking at my life the way I look at my life in soccer? Why wouldn't I believe today could be a good day, that I could win today? When I make a mistake in a game, I don't spend 15 minutes worrying about it. I wash it away and I get on with the game, right? And I try to make something new happen. So I had to start having that perspective in my life. Yes, it's a mistake. I can learn from it, but I need to move on.
Wow. Man, this is exciting because, this is a particular interest to me because, I'm trying to sell optimism on this show, which I can tell you is not easy. I try to promote the idea that it's not what's happening to your circumstance. It's about how you view it all that makes the difference. So thank you very much for adding a voice to the chant. I appreciate that. A question I'm curious about in regard to this issue, it's something I might be talking about soon, is do you think hardship is necessary before adopting a new perspective? I mean, for instance, that idea that some people have a near-death experience before they develop an appreciation for life or something. Or do you think you could just encourage people to take on a new perspective from hearing your story without, not going the hard way?
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to whatever it is that opens your eyes.
Okay.
Right. There's always got to be something that kind of opens your eyes or wakes you up, or gives you a shake. And that can come from a lot of different things. It can come from watching a movie. Maybe somebody is inspired by the character and thinks, wow, why don't I start to have that perspective? And it can come from reading a book. It can come from listening to a podcast. It can come from, a conversation you have in a coffee shop, or unfortunately, sometimes it comes from hardship, but it can come from someone else's hardship and they're sharing their story and you're learning from it, so I think it can certainly come. I don't think it's necessary. I think it can be a catalyst for sure, but I think there's other catalysts as well if we're willing to open our eyes.
Right. Well, great. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, and I expected that. I took it that was your opinion. Else you wouldn't have bothered sharing your video, right? Why would you even bother? And It's certainly my view, or else I wouldn't bother doing the show either. Yeah. So,
and I think it's a great point, Matt, because people believe that they need to have some kind of trauma or hardship to wake them up, whereas we all have the ability to wake up. We all have the ability to see the world in a new way if we choose to.
That's what I'm trying to say. I'm like, come on, just appreciate the stuff right now, people. You don't have to hit rock bottom first, But unfortunately, it takes that for some people. But I should hope it won't, and it doesn't have to. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. That one, I just love that one. Here. You went on, I choose to focus on a life of inner wisdom and outer action. So of what is this wisdom composed, and what are some examples of outer action?
Yeah. So, the way I look at wisdom is kind of like wisdom comes from experience, so, and it can be your experience. It can be somebody else's experience that you've learned from reading about it. It can be, a shared experience where like we've just talked about, where you've listened to someone and learned from them, so experience can come from a lot of different ways. Wisdom comes from experience, and then what you learn from that experience, right? So are you reflecting on the experience? Are you trying to learn from the experience? Are you trying to grow from the experience? We all have experiences every day. Every moment is an experience. So it's all about what you choose to focus on from that experience. So getting a flat tire is an experience, and you have a choice about how you want to focus on that. You can get out and be, say, well, all right, I got a flat tire, I got to fix it, and not much I can do about it. Let's get on with it. Or you can get out and start kicking the tire and yelling and screaming and why does the world hate me so much? Like, they're the same experience, and what you want to learn from it, is up to you. One of the challenges I had was I had a hard time I was very good at learning from my experiences, but not always good at taking action to apply them, so I really try to think, now about, well, what is outer action? Outer action is doing something, not just thinking about it, right? So, if I've learned something about a new way to, talk to my partner, then I need to action it. I need to try it. I need to practice it, right? So it would be like me telling you how to kick a soccer ball, but you never go out and try and do it, So what I've tried to do now in terms of what I see action as is practice. So how can I practice whatever it is I've learned, So, I get, if I get frustrated when people are angry with me, then how can I learn to communicate with them better? How can I understand what they're feeling at this moment, right? What do they need from me now, as opposed to what is their actions doing to me, right? Mm-hmm. Do they need me to listen more? Do they need me to take action for them right now? right? So you experiment with those actions, so sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong, and then you try and start the process again.
And you develop more inner wisdom through having,
exactly,
there you go.
which you can apply to your outer action the next time.
I got it. Great. You mentioned here how I want to try to be in this world on that point, to be brave, present, and loving. What does it look like to be brave, present, and loving? I love the sound of those concepts.
Yeah. And I mean, and every individual is probably going to come up with their own sense of what they want to be, right?
I want to hear yours.
The first thing for me is that there's a big difference between what you do and how you want to be, right? So how you want to be in the world is sort of all encompassing in whatever action you're out there doing, so whatever you're putting out in the world at that moment, can you try to be a certain way, right? So in terms of being present, that's a big one for me. That I think being present gets a bad rap, because people think that being present means you just dismiss the past and you never prepare for the future, but being present doesn't mean you don't learn from the past. It just means you're not living there anymore, right? You're not going back to those past mistakes and feeling those same emotions. You're learning from them and you're applying them to your present moment. And it doesn't mean you're not preparing for the future. It just means you're letting go of your expectations of the future, right? So you're not thinking, well, when I reach this point or when I get this thing done, life will be a certain way, or that moment will look a certain way, right? Because then you're not present to what's happening right now either. You're already in the future thinking, well, this is going to happen and that's the way it's going to be, and it's going to be terrible or it's going to be great, and now you're not here in the present moment. And that was a big challenge for me in terms of my depression, because what did I do for a living? I analyzed past performances and prepared for future performances as a coach.
Yeah.
Right. So I had a hard time just getting present. Right. So that for me, that's so vital, and that's another practice that's where like things like breath work and meditation help, because they bring you back to the present.
Right. I do.
And I mean, being brave, is about more than just the physical courage, right? I mean, there's a component of that. Yeah, there's the guy who runs into the fire and pulls the people out, and that's important, and that's brave, and that's courage. But really, being brave is it's not about not having fear. It's about taking action in spite of your fear. So being brave can be as simple as going to ask that girl to dance at the junior high dance, that moment of courage, right? That it can be making a phone call you don't want to make. It can be having a difficult conversation with a player or a family member, and it's all those little things. It can be sitting in silence, maybe you're just afraid to be with yourself, so can you have the courage just to sit with yourself for a moment and take inventory of how you're feeling and where you're at, And to be loving for me is kind of an all-encompassing thing. I think of it as more than just being in love. I mean, being in love is great. It's fantastic. I'm in love with the game of soccer. I'm in love with my family. I love my wife, Maura. But the downside of those things is that if they go for some reason, does that mean you have no love in your life? Right. So if I can never play soccer, coach soccer again, then do I have no love in my life? Or
I should hope not.
Or if somebody dies, do I have no love in my life anymore because my love was connected to that person? So I think of it more as like a loving, compassionate kind of love, right? Can you be in love with your own life? Can you just be a loving person? So can you put that energy out into the world, right? When you have a choice between, hating something or being angry with something, can you take a moment to think about how they're feeling, what they're going through, what's brought them to that point, or what's made that situation happen? I don't see love as a thing of judgment. It's just a way of being.
Yes.
And I believe all of those things are skills that can be practiced. So every moment you have a decision to make about whether to be or not be a certain way, that you have an opportunity to practice. So where during your day can you practice being loving? Where during your day can you practice being present? When you feel your mind drifting, can you come back to your center? Where can you practice being brave? Doing this for me is out of my comfort zone. So this is good practice for me.
Big time.
Right? This is being brave right now, I think.
I think it is. Yeah. And again, I want to say, I do appreciate it so much that you're coming and doing that, because I understand I'm even uncomfortable. I've been doing this for a little while and I'm uncomfortable doing this.
You're still scared of the old coach. That's why. I can't make you run laps now. Man.
No. Yeah. Well, I probably would. Yes, sir. I actually do have my own practice on that, Lewis, as far as being brave. Sometimes whenever there's something that comes up that someone invites me to do something, or should I take on this show or this interview or whatever. And if the reason that I don't want to is because I feel a little uncomfortable about it, I say yes. I just say it, do yes, and then I'll figure it out, even though I don't know what I'm doing. Right. So that's kind of one way I've developed that, and all kinds of what you're saying. I'm just getting so excited the whole time, because anyway, all you're saying, I've discovered it in other ways in my own life, and I hear how you're saying it and putting it in a different way for me. And I'm just like, ooh, but I won't go on to it. I'm just going to let it sit there, and people can enjoy how you put it. But I love that. You said, think of your life as a great experiment, and you are the subject. So make observations, be curious, and try to apply new solutions to the problems you face. You may not always succeed, but you may learn and grow. This is optimism, in my view, right? That I talk about. It's not about necessary success, but it's about mindset and method. But what are some of the observations you've made, and in what ways do you express your curiosity? And what are some of the solutions you've applied? I hope that's not too much at once.
Yeah, I mean, some of the observations I made, like, one of the things which it may seem strange is that I struggle with like discipline. So for me to be, as a player, disciplined, sure. As a coach, disciplined, planning, sure. But
Easy.
in everyday life, it's a much bigger challenge for me. Like, I really have to make a conscious effort to sort of like, be disciplined to plan my day, be disciplined to take care of the family and things that need to be done at the house. And otherwise I would spend, 24/7 just watching soccer games all the time and not doing anything else, so to be disciplined is a real challenge for me. And I've had to sort of be conscious, and that's, sort of my word for this year, is to try and be more disciplined, right? To be more regimented, more planned, and have more discipline in my regular day life,
So then, so when you say observations about yourself, really be aware. You're the subject, so be aware, be self-conscious, I guess is your word, conscious of what's going on, what do I need? And discipline was something you observed.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of an ongoing process, so journaling, reflecting on the day, if you've had a conflict with someone or something, or you've had a challenge that you had to try and meet, well, do you take some time to think about how could that have been different, or why was that successful? Or, what role did I play in that? Was that something I influenced, or was that something that was put upon me and I had no control over it? So how much are you looking at those things? And then where, are you looking for new solutions? So are you reading new books? Are you having different conversations? Are you trying to grow your experiences, so that you can apply them to, new problems?
Okay, then I guess we're getting close to winding it out here. But we got every action matters. You said that was the slogan. I love that expression. And here I try to promote small ball or everyday actions versus like a sweeping move to greatness or success. I wonder, do you have an example of a small action making a difference? Give us a concrete.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a lot of different things. Like, for me, it's, getting up early now for me is a small action that has a big impact on my day, you know. And in the past, I you know, some days up early, some days up late, you know, all that, you know, none of that really, yeah, it was good, it was bad, it didn't have a big impact on me, but I've gotten in the habit, partly by force, because I run a 6:15 a.m. session a couple of days a week, but I've gotten in the habit now of rising early and having, you know, an hour and a half or so of time for myself, you know. And that's not a huge world changing action. That's just waking up at you know, 5 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock, but that little action has had a huge impact on me, you know. And then yeah, it affects me, and then it affects my outlook, and then my outlook affects the people around me, right? You know. And it can be outwardly too. It can be as simple as, you know, the person paying at the drive-thru for the person behind them. You know, it might only be a couple of bucks, but it's a small action that has a big impact. Maybe the person behind you is having a bad day, and then it's something good that's happened for them, you know. So, and it can go the other way. I mean, your actions, you know, negatively, small actions can have a big impact on people as well, right? So I think it's important that people know that whatever they do has value, you know, and a small action can have value and a big action can have value, but that in being in action, you create value.
And I'm very curious that you said it both ways as well. So, you know, whether positive or negative. So yeah. I'm taking that away here. Every action matters. Now, some of these sayings that I was loving today, did you come up with a lot of these sayings or formulations? I know connect, care, and share, or were they adopted from teachers and therapists?
Some were adopted. So connect, care, and share is kind of mine, but it's probably something that, you know, I was influenced by a number of things. Where your energy goes, your attention flows was from someone I had listened to. I don't know exactly who, but I remember it really sticking in my brain. Yeah, you know, as an important thing. Yeah. And I mean, Every Action Matters was the Bell Let's Talk Day, and they should really, you know, be applauded for that whole program, the Bell Let's Talk, because it's made so many people come out and talk about how they're feeling and what they're going through, you know. So it's a fantastic program.
Yeah, congratulations to them, and gratitude. Lewis, on those expressions, I would say in any case, you would say that whether it's somebody else's thing, you have to articulate it for yourself or understand it in a certain way before you own it. Would you say that?
Yes, for sure, 100%.
So when you use that, you know it means something to you deeper.
Yep, most definitely. Yeah. I mean, you have to decide what it means to you, and you know, apply it as you see fit. But you know, I love things in small messages.
Yes.
That kind of, you know, hit you in the moment, and you can take it in quickly. You know, it comes from halftime's only like 10 minutes, right? I got to get my words out quick and concise.
Yes, and then, but what has to happen is that they have to be packing a lot of meaning that people have put the time in to understand, so that when you hear it or use it yourself or to your players, then they know what that means. Yeah. Okay. You refer in the video to a journey with depression, but you say that you have a much better umbrella, as we said. So kind of, this is the kind of final point for me, I guess, just in a couple points here, but at one point, is depression something that can heal, like as a broken arm may heal, or is it just something that you live with and for which you must carry such an umbrella in what do you expect, or from what you know about it?
Well, I think from my experience, it's something that you live with, you know, and it's about dealing with it and having the umbrella and having the skills, you know, to work through it. You know, but I think if everybody does a little bit of work, we're all suffering from something in terms of our mental health. You know, none of us are in the perfect state of mental health. The difference is, you know, some of us have been able to label something or give it an identity so that it's a little clearer to be able to go after, right? But I guarantee you, we all have a little bit of something And it's just a matter of having the awareness to go after it and see what it's all about, and then the skill set to manage it.
Mm-hmm. I do agree with that. And that's why I'm really trying to understand this too. Is, I mean, obviously I want everybody to have a concept of it, but even in my own life, I'm kind of trying to wonder, to what degree do I have something that I have to deal with, and is that something that's out of my control? Can I affect it to a point where I can completely heal, et cetera, all of those kind of things? And I wonder if people have a lot of those questions. So
yeah, and I mean that comes back to the concept of you're the subject in your own experiment in your life, right? So the more you dig into things, the more you have these kind of conversations, the more the work you're doing and the questions you're asking of the world right now with what you're doing, the more things that will come to you, and that's all part of a mental health process as well. You've had your life experiences that have impacted you and have brought you to this point, and you're going to discover things about you as you keep asking those questions, and that's so you're actually going through the same journey.
Yep. I would say when I hear you talking, it's like, yeah, these are practices that I'm doing, and it's to gain better mental health is where I would say. I'm not necessarily coming out of something, but certainly trying to build something, because I feel like, why can't I just be better? Why can't I feel better more often?
Yep.
Yep. And that's what I'm working on. So I guess the final thing, Lewis, how did you first learn of the Bell Let's Talk Day campaign, and how did you become involved to make such a video originally? And what made you feel you wanted to do it? So at the time you were reaching out to friends, and then, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the first thing was, my first experience was when Michael Landsberg did his bit on TSN. He had a very moving piece about his mental health journey, and on Bell Let's Talk Day. It was actually, I think, the year before I did the video. And I remember watching his story and thinking, wow, what he's saying is a lot of what I feel and think, So I remember thinking back to that moment. So when the AUS, Atlantic University Sport came out and we're partnering with Bell, the athletic department asked if there were athletes that would be willing to speak. And I went to the athletic director at the time and said, well, yeah, I have a couple of athletes that would speak, but I said, I'd like to speak because I think it's important that I tell my story, And it was when I look back at that video now, I realized I was, there was still quite a lot of pain down deep inside there. And I can see some of it starting to bubble to the surface. But, once you share your story, you put your story out in the world, you start to heal. You really start to heal. And you heal so much from the conversations you have with other people. And by putting that energy out there, and they come to you with their stories and you share, and more people heal. I would recommend everybody to be vulnerable and tell your story.
Did you feel that at the time? Did you think maybe this is something that might help me on the way to healing, or was it more just, it's like almost like something I should be doing for other people? Or
yeah, it was more of an intuition. Mm-hmm. Like it was almost like a gut feeling. I remember being very emotional at the time of doing it, very nervous, very anxious, and almost collapsing at the end of it, because there was such a release, such a weight gone just from being able to say, look, this is what's going on with me.
You can see it in the video. I mean, and that's what moved a lot of people to it. And that's probably spurred a lot of the response, because I was like, wow, I mean, yeah.
Share the gold.
Share the gold. All right. Well, Lewis, then, is there a final word you'd like to say on any of this, or anything I missed that you'd like to make sure we highlight here before we get out?
I think it's, I just want to say that I really love your message. I think your message about optimism and the way you present it is very practical, right? It's something that people can use. It's not a philosophical theory that is out there in the world. The way you've presented it is something that you can do every day. You can practice every day, and I really enjoy that message, and I think it's something we have in common. Mm-hmm. And I would encourage people to not be afraid to practice in life. Practice living your life. You know, you don't have to be perfect. It's progress over perfection, and just one step at a time, you know, one decision at a time, practice being the way you want to be.
Well, thank you very much, Lewis. I really appreciate it coming from you. And that word practice, and I do actually refer to what I'm putting out as practical philosophy, right? Because I feel like philosophy is a practical subject, and is the word practice, practical, it's all there. So thank you very much for that. So to listeners then, let me say to please share this interview. Lewis has been brave and kind enough to allow us a deep look into his personal journey. And if you know anyone who might find value in this, please share it with that pertinent person. Awareness is growing, but we can always be more educated. And I've certainly gained a lot from this, and I expect you have. So let us connect with more people by caring enough to share as Lewis has. So you can also ask questions and make comments in the comments section. You can go to the Mr. Brightside Facebook page. That's facebook.com/MatthewBolton.ca. Lewis has already heard from so many people in his own posts, but I'm sure it never gets old to hear support coming in. As well, in light of what we've heard today, I'm sure there's lots of follow-up that's occurred to you, or maybe you just think that I blew it and I didn't ask something that's obvious, right? Well, I invite you to ask it. You know, ask it, and please help Lewis help more people get educated on these mental health issues, and that many of us around us are struggling with. Lewis, where should people go if they want to connect with you directly, or is there anywhere you'd care to direct people to learn more about these issues?
Yeah, I mean, people. I'm on Twitter at LewisPage6. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's a great way to sort of follow some of my messages, and people can DM me there, and then I can reach out to them. That's probably the best way.
All right, excellent. Well, I've got to say, Lewis, that I've just had a great time talking to you today. It's just great seeing you. And I appreciate your willingness to dig deeper and share something that I imagine can't always be comfortable. I thought I would get something valuable out of you. And of course, you've delivered today. So thank you so much. And I wish all the best to you and your family going forward.
All right. Thank you, Matthew. Great to see you.
Okay. And to listeners, I hope you take the perspective and tools Lewis has offered us here and use them to create for yourself or help lead others around you to more sunny days than cloudy days. I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, that was a great finish. I like that way you finished that. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I mean, every time you get into these kind of conversations, it challenges you to think about how you're interpreting what you're doing, right?
Yes.
You know, and,
yes.
and how to explain it, and how, you know, because so much of it is an internal conversation,
mm-hmm.
you know, and it's sort of a feeling,
yes,
you know, and then how to articulate that to people, right? And so that they can get something of value from it that they might be able to apply, right?
Mr. Brightside, your time out to refresh, refuel, and refocus your mind and energy toward building an optimistic framework for flourishing. Life is good. It's up to you to choose the bright side.